Whoa.
All right, man. We are live in prime time, and we ain't hard to find. We had a little technical difficulties right there. What's up, man?
Not much, man. We're about to talk some championship football. Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs. Congratulations to you. I'm ready to kick it, man. Let's get it.
Let's go. All right, man.
All
What a
right, man.
game.
It's what a game. What a game. I mean, one of the most exciting second halves of football that I've seen in quite some time. Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs. It's that time. We're doing it like Coach Prime. Got the sunglasses on and everything, man. We're
Yeah, gotta wear the
championship
primes.
season. Yep, we are championship season. Congratulations, like I said, to your Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes winning this, what's that, third Super Bowl now?
Third Super
Been to
Bowl,
the
third Super Bowl MVP. Crazy.
yep, been to the conference championship all 6 years that he's been a starter. I mean, it is crazy with what your Chiefs have accomplished. I'm gonna turn it over to you and let you just kind of spill your excitement, man. Let's hear it.
Yeah, man. In all honesty and confession, I didn't wear my contacts today, so I got to put these old man glasses back on for a second so I can see what I'm looking at. Oh, brother, what a terrifying game for like most of the game, for almost, well, all of the game. I will confess that we can get into all kinds of details and all that. I think first and foremost, I want to start out by, I think, apologizing to that offensive line of the San Francisco 49ers because they overperformed. I still don't think they're super good. I still think that's what they need to focus on in their offseason, and they need some pieces up there. But those dudes outplayed probably their ability and their expectations, and hats off to them. And their defensive line showed up. And one of my Niners buddies, I've been calling Chase Young, Chris Young, as kind of a little dig because I just don't think he has played very well. But he showed up in the first half of that football game, and I told him, I texted him during the game. I was like, I guess Chase earned his name back, so give Chase Young a tip of the hat. And that's a fantastic football team. So before I talk all my shit, I just want to make sure I get that out there. Like, they pushed us to the absolute max. Obviously, I mean, you played pretty much a full quarter of overtime, additional extra bonus football. And wow, what an amazing game, man. What an amazing game. I mean, we could talk about all the wonderful and great things with the Chiefs, but I just want to tip my hat to the Niners.
No, the 49ers did a great job. Just steps away from winning that championship. So, I mean, can't take anything away from San Francisco on that. Can't take away anything from Brock Purdy. A couple of questionable decisions that were probably made during that game and a couple of key errors. Both teams made some key errors and key mistakes. Uh, I thought the referees, for the most part, did a pretty good job. There were some calls that could have gone either way on some things, some missed calls that I think they had. There was one key missed call that we're going to talk about a little bit later that I don't know if you saw it or what your thoughts were on it, but there was one key missed call that I thought they had. But all in all, I think the game played out balanced. It came down to the players; they did their thing, and it was a fun game to watch when it came down to the overtime period and things.
What's
I mean,
up,
it was just a really
Jamil?
good fun game to watch. How
Yeah,
are you
it
doing?
was.
Thanks for chiming in.
Yeah, it was a fantastic game. Jamil's a good friend of mine. He's a KC boy. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to the parade, man. Pretty sure I'm going down to the parade.
That's on
I mi-
Wednesday, I believe, if I remember right.
It is, man. I missed the last two parades, and I kind of regretted that. I'm not a huge people that know me, and they know why. I won't get into that, but I don't love crowds. I don't love crowds. I deal with it for football games and stuff because my mind really isn't on the big crowd and all that kind of stuff. But I just kind of want to go experience it once, man. Like, there's literally almost a million people packed downtown KC, down by Union Station, and people are getting silly and drunk and having a good time. Looks like a good time, so I'm gonna go down there and test it out, I think.
Oh, you got to, man. This is
Starts at
just
11
only a couple
a.m.
hours away. Yeah, if it's only a couple hours away, man, you can get down there. You got to see your team win a championship. If it ever happens for the
Yeah.
Cowboys again, I might try to make that trip myself. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
Once
man.
in, don't want to say once in a lifetime event because the way the Chiefs are playing, man, it looks like you're gonna have plenty of more opportunities to get down to a few more parades with the way that team is
That's an
stacked and
important
loaded.
it's an important point though. Like you never know when you're never gonna be back.
Now, you never know, but the Chiefs are looking mighty darn good, and they got the top quarterback in the league. Dan Orlovsky said something on ESPN earlier this morning, which I'm agreeing with them on this. The difference between Mahomes and the number 2 quarterback is further away than the difference between the second and fifth quarterback in the NFL, if that makes any sense to you. That's
Absolutely.
how dominant I believe Mahomes is.
Thanks, Marlon. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you supporting the channel, dude. Yeah, I agree completely, man. Actually, me and Jamil were actually talking about this earlier, and there used to be a guy. I don't remember his name. You might remember his name. He was a low-level NBA guy, and he made YouTube videos of him playing like regular schmoes and gyms and stuff. And he would always say, I'm closer to Michael Jordan than you are to
Scalabrini. I
me."
think it's Scalabrini.
Yeah,
Scalabrini. Yep.
yeah.
I believe that's who it was.
And that's true with Mahomes, man. Like he's closer to GOAT status than anybody's closer to him. You know what I mean? Like there's a huge
Most
gap.
definitely. Most definitely. I mean, there's some other great quarterbacks in this league, but if he's one, it's like if I give him an A, the next closest quarterback, and that's not saying there aren't other A quarterbacks, but if I'm putting Mahomes at an A, the next closest quarterback is possibly just a B plus.
Yeah, if you're grading on
And
a curve, yeah.
I'm grading on a curve that way. Mahomes is way up there, and it's like I told you a couple weeks ago. Once Kansas City got to the Super Bowl, Mahomes is my number 2 quarterback of all time. I got him behind Brady, just because Brady's beaten him twice in the playoffs and has taken him down. So I'm going to give Brady that credit. But Mahomes is well on his way of getting his way up there, man. He's well on his way.
Well, since you brought it up, I think we might as well have that talk, the GOAT talk, because it's been going on all day. Might as well chime in on that and give the arguments because Mahomes talked about it last night after the game, and he kind of said, "Well, Brady beat me, so he has that," which is true. And Mahomes is a pretty humble guy. I don't know how he stays that humble, to be completely honest. If I was Patrick Mahomes, I'd probably be an ass. But good on him for staying humble. But the conversation goes to next year, and if I mean it's next to impossible to do. Let's be honest. Let's get that out in front to three-peat. Nobody's ever done it.
No one's ever done it.
But
No one's won back to back in 20 years. Been 20 years since that's happened. Yeah.
It has been 20 years since the Patriots did it in 03 and 04. If you three-peat, does that change the GOAT conversation?
It might. It absolutely might because no one's ever three-peated. So if he can pull off that feat, I might definitely close that gap between him and Brady. Not that it's even a far gap as it is right now.
That's my thing, man. Like how much of this conversation about GOAT status is eye test and what we see versus rings? Because I feel like it's become almost solely rings, and I don't understand that.
Well, I mean, I already told you Montana wasn't my number 2 on my list anyway.
I'm not saying your list necessarily. I'm just saying as a general discussion, it feels like it's all about rings.
It might feel that way, but no one ever said Terry Bradshaw's in the top 5.
That used to be my argument all the time when, before Brady was Brady, it was always, okay, well, Joe Montana's the greatest quarterback of all time. And I would always kind of chime in, well, maybe. And actually, Joe Montana was my greatest quarterback of all time. But I like to argue. Just to argue, I would say, then you got to say Terry Bradshaw's number 2.
Yeah. So for me, it's a combination of both. I believe that when you're looking at the greatest quarterbacks of all time, to me, you got to take in the ring consideration. But then you also take on what you see on the field and how they play, how they lead. That's one of the reasons why I have Elway. He was my number 2, and now he's my number 3 on my list. So when you talk about separating tiers, that's to me more where the ring conversation comes into effect with it. is when you're starting to separate some tiers and things like that. Like I said, if Brady didn't have so many championships, if Brady was at 4, Mahomes would probably be my number 1 quarterback of all time, just to be perfectly honest. But for
So
Brady to
that
get up to
was
7, participate
yeah,
in 10,
yeah.
that's just a whole different ball game in my opinion at
Well,
this moment.
Brady
And
has
I know it's a
longevity
team
too.
effort.
Brady has
Yeah,
the longevity thing too. Like, I mean, he played for what, 24 years?
yeah, played for 24 years, but like I said, that's why Mahomes has already jumped into my top 2 because of how
Mm-hmm.
quickly he's done it.
He's
And
28.
he's one of the few quarterbacks that actually elevates his teammates to be better. You know what I mean? He
So
actually
I
elevates
love it.
everyone.
As a Chiefs fan, I love it because, like, to me, the whole conversation has been moving the goalposts for Mahomes since he started. You know, like when he came out his rookie year and threw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns or whatever it was, and like tore up the league and went to the AFC Championship game, and everybody was like, "Calm down." Well, duly so, like, calm down. You got to do it more than once. But then he did it again, and it's like, all right, dude, like he's done it twice. Enough. He has arrived. And then they kind of moved that goalpost, and they said, well, he only won one, or whatever. And it seems like every time the Chiefs accomplish something, the goalpost moves, right? It's like, well, because we've been in this discussion about is this the beginning of a dynasty? We've been having that conversation for a while now. And I think finally that is settled. Like, you have to say this
Oh,
is officially a dynasty.
no, it definitely is. And be perfectly honest, this is one of the greatest Super Bowl runs through the playoffs that I've probably seen by a team.
Yeah.
The '85 Bears always come to mind because of the way that defense played. That was a
Mm-hmm.
great run through the playoffs. But when I talk about that, I mean as far as because you mentioned the goalpost moving, so the question on Mahomes became, can he win on the road? So he beats a
Yep.
Miami team. Now, granted, the weather was cold. Miami's offense wasn't until full effect, probably the way it could be,
Mm-hmm.
but that's Chiefs defense. I don't know if it would have mattered anyway.
They had a lot of
They,
injuries on defense too, but I
yeah,
think that conversation, just real quick, like, hey man, nobody cares.
yeah, it's just you got to play.
Yeah.
And then so you guys go on the road to your nemesis Buffalo, which is what everyone has just always said.
Yeah.
Buffalo has to get Kansas City at home. Well, they got them at home and couldn't pull it off. So there's no
Didn't
more
matter.
excuses on that. So then
Yeah.
what do you guys go to is probably go to Baltimore and beat what I think most people will say was overall the best team in the league throughout the regular season. I think most people
Yeah.
will say that top to bottom with the way they
What
played.
was the boss, dude, in Mike Tyson's Punch Out, bro? The second boss before the final boss was actually tougher. You remember?
Uh,
You
I
remember
wasn't
that?
that I wasn't that good at Mike Tyson's Punch Out, so I couldn't. I don't know if I ever made it that far.
Gotcha.
I
But
wasn't
yeah,
that good at. Yeah.
it felt like the Ravens. I mean, no disrespect to the 49ers, but it felt like everybody was saying, "Hey, the Ravens are the best team in football."
I felt like they were top to bottom,
Yeah,
especially with the way they played all year. They had the MVP, which I mean we both say is questionable. We think should have been Christian McCaffrey probably
I agree.
with that
Yeah.
situation. But then you guys go and you beat the number 1 team in the NFC as well. It's not like you guys beat a 4th seed or a 5th seed coming out of the NFC. You beat the next top team that had been up there all year.
Yep.
So overall impressive wise, this is one of the top performances playoff wise that's been around for quite a while, quite some time. It's not like they took on anyone that was a cakewalk on the schedule whatsoever.
Never.
Every single team in the playoffs, they actually were good teams that they came across and they took them down. So props to the Chiefs on that situation with that.
Yeah, you know what I don't get, man, is this is kind of somewhat off subject, but this morning Vegas opens up with the 49ers as the favorite to win the Super Bowl.
I saw that.
It's like, what are you doing? How many times do you want to lose? How many times do you want to take it over the head? Keep betting against Patrick Mahomes. I ain't doing it.
No,
I said
I
that
would
at the
never do it,
beginning of all
man.
this. I said the beginning of this whole playoff run, I'm like, look, I'm not betting against him. Yeah, we didn't have a great regular season, but we did what we had to do. We're here. Good luck. And
Yeah, I
that's the
mean,
way it turned out.
he's proved everybody wrong. He's done his thing. I mean, there's nothing left. There's nothing negative you can say about Mahomes. To be perfectly
Yeah.
honest, it's the way
Yep.
he plays and the way he elevates his teammates. The way his teammates seem to want to play for him every single play, like no one wants to let him down whatsoever. Um, Enough can't be said about Patrick Mahomes. He's easily top notch, the best quarterback in the league. There's no one close. Um, so we'll see. Like he's talking three-peat already, saying we're gonna do this and get ready and go for a three-peat. He's already talking about three-peats.
Jamil says Chiefs took down 3 top 10 defenses, 3 top 10 offenses. I saw,
Yep.
to Jamil's point here, I saw some kind of graphic that said in the playoffs, the Chiefs played 4 of the top 6 offenses.
I believe so because you have Miami, Buffalo, Baltimore, and San Francisco. So I mean, like I said, the Chiefs' defense was just phenomenal this year. That defense is what carried them to the championship for the Super Bowl. Mahomes and everyone's going to get the attention.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
My buddy Jason, like we talk a lot. We play Madden together. We talk pretty much almost every day, and we talk a lot of football. And he watched the show last week or whatever, and he kind of took exception to the corners and wants to get his whole process was, I want to go right at him. Our receivers are better. Ayuk is the best route runner in the league, and kind of my whole thing was like, buddy, Snead has already shut down Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase. He's already shut down what's his name? Diggs. He's already, like, the list is ridiculous of the guys that he went against this year, and played 20 games and gave up 2 touchdowns. Both were in the playoffs. It's like that dude made himself a ton of money.
Yeah, he's going to be set, and hopefully things can go well for him. Are you ready to dive into the game with any thought process that you have with the game or anything? Or
yeah, man, we can do that.
Yeah, let's dive into the game. I had some key plays that I thought of. I don't know if there's anything you want to talk about with the first half or anything like that.
Man, yeah. That first half was just rough and nerve-wracking for me as a Chiefs fan. I mean, I loved the first drive. Obviously, the defense came up big right away and gets the turnover. And that was a forced error. That was not an unforced error. They stripped that ball and recover it and stop a drive there. And then, my thinking as a Chiefs fan is, okay, we'll go down and score. And this game is already in trouble for the 49ers. And you couldn't really get it done. Like, that defense played well above what I expected them to, because they hadn't looked that good. But they came out for the Super Bowl and looked like what you would expect the 49ers defense to look like. But they hadn't looked like that really to me all year. So they came out and were fired up.
Yeah, we talked off camera, and I remember asking you about this matchup, and you said this is a bad matchup for the 49ers. I remember you saying that all week long, that it was a bad matchup for them. And the 49ers showed out, in my opinion. They played almost as well as you could.
Almost as well as you
could.
Yeah. And I stand by my comment. Like, my mind didn't change. Like, obviously the matchups were good enough to win. And when you had to go down and score a touchdown to end the game, you were able to do that. And let's be honest, that last drive looked pretty easy. And I don't know, man, like, I don't want to get too far into that, but we'll get there. But I'll just say this. My nerves came down like 10 levels when we got to overtime, because I knew we had a chance. Like, they created that overtime rule because of the Chiefs, and it ended up helping the Chiefs. So
most definitely, Shanahan, I think, had something to do with that too. With let's just go ahead and go into the overtime real fast, since we're talking about the overtime. Let's go ahead and go into that. 49ers make a mistake taking the ball first. I believe so. I think you said so as well. What's your reasoning for it?
Well, it's just like Romo talked on the broadcast. I thought he did a great job of explaining overtime and kind of laying out for people that maybe aren't as into football as everybody is as we are. But when you take the ball first, you put yourself at a disadvantage. All the pressure is on you. You have to go score. You don't know what you need. Whereas if you get the ball second, you know what you need. And until you get down into the high red zone, you're in 4-down territory all the time. You get an extra down.
Yep.
And you don't even have to think about it, which changes the play calling until you get into the high red.
Correct.
So you're down into the 30-yard line, and before you're even thinking about, okay, now I have to think about kicking, you know. So until you get to the 30-yard line, you're not even thinking about a kicker coming out. So I think that's a huge advantage in itself. But then also just knowing what you have to do is a huge thing. It's like, hey, man, they went and kicked a field goal. All we need is a touchdown to go win the game. So
Now, did you hear Shanahan's explanation for why they took the ball?
I think I did, but remind me.
He said they talked to the analytics department and said they want the ball third. Was the reason they took the ball. Is the reason why they took the ball. Analytic-wise, they believed having the ball third was the best chance for them to win that game. Now, forget that you got to get past first and second possessions. But they said having the ball third was the best chance.
Can we talk about analytics departments for a minute? These guys, okay, like I'm going to say this as nicely as I possibly can because we know some analytics guys, and I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. Enough with the nerd shit, man. Like you have to think about football and your football experience. And to me, there's a little bit of common sense that comes into play with that. And you just said it, man. You got to get to the third possession before you start worrying about the third possession. And obviously, you didn't get to the third possession, so that didn't matter, did it? You jabroni.
So my thing with him taking that ball is if that's what he truly believed, the one thing you don't ever want to do is give Mahomes a fourth down. You know what I mean? You don't want to give him an extra down. Yeah,
hey,
stop it, Shanahan.
I didn't know. I've been watching a lot of Shay Shay. I have. So that was probably a subconscious act because I do love me some Shay Shay.
No, he said he's talking about Shanahan, the 49ers coach.
Oh.
Yeah, Shanahan. Bad. Yeah, he's talking about Shanahan, the 49ers coach, I believe.
Oh, yeah, my bad. I misunderstood.
Yep. But
my statement stands. I've been watching a lot of Cubs to Cubs. I love that dude. I love Hunk.
Yep. But as I said, my biggest thing is that if you take the ball first, when you get inside the 10-yard line, on that fourth down, you go for it and get the lead. And this is the reason why is because if your defense then at least makes a stand to get them on third down, the Chiefs have to consider punting the ball or get the Chiefs to a fourth down. They have to consider punting the ball. Their play calls change, style possibly changes.
Well,
because if you're going to take the ball
changes, and something that affects that too is the Chiefs' defense. They're so damn good. You think about punting when you wouldn't before.
Exactly. And so at least at that moment, like the 49ers defense got the Chiefs to a fourth down at their own, 34-yard line. Maybe Andy Reid at that point's like, maybe I have to punt the ball.
Yep.
Maybe he's saying that just because of the simple fact of I can't give the 49ers the ball at the 34 and I might just punt it and hope my punter gets a 70-yard punt and we pin them deep or something to that effect with it. But otherwise, I think you go for it at that point.
Since you brought up that 4th and 1, I was talking to Patterson earlier, one of our other fellow coaches, and he made an interesting point, I thought, about that 4th and 1. And, I mean, we've talked about it for a couple weeks now. Like, you kind of already know what they're running, right? Like,
well, that was a different wrinkle off of it, though.
It's a wrinkle, but it's the same play.
It is, but they took advantage of Bosa crashing, which – we talked about on the last episode.
Oh, you're talking about – I'm not – okay, maybe we're talking about – because we had two – I think we had 2 fourth downs. Or maybe I'm mixing a fourth down up, but I'm
thinking of the overtime.
Was that the read option?
Yeah, that's the read option. And then they ran a read option again.
Beautiful. Yeah, the read option was beautiful.
That's the one I'm talking about.
At some point, we ran a 4th and 1 sprint option, right? And we ended up just not throwing it. Like, he ran it. But that was sprint option, right?
Are you talking about the 15-yard run Mahomes had?
I have to pull up the tape, man, to be completely honest, because I think I'm maybe mixing up some of the plays here. But
okay, because I thought that was the same play that they ran in overtime. Was the fake handoff across, Bosa crashes, and he has the option to pass it or throw it, or pass it or run it. He has that option, and if it opens up on the run, he just runs it.
We
Because that was the
definitely
play of
ran a
that.
read option on one of those, and yeah, Bosa crashed hard,
Yep.
as he should. We never run read option anymore, like we used to a little bit, but we've taken that out of the repertoire up until just last night, basically. So
Yeah.
I'm going to try to find a play. If you want to talk about your thoughts here real quick, I'm going to try to find that play.
No, but I was just mostly talking about that overtime as far as that goes, just because the simple fact that, like I said, if you take the ball first, you go for it on fourth down when you get inside especially inside the 10. So that's just my take on the overtime situation since we started kind of going into that. If you're going to be that aggressive and you're saying you want to dictate the game and you think that's your best chance, go for it. If you get stopped on fourth down, at least the Chiefs have to consider punting the ball when they get to a fourth down situation. It makes it a little bit easier for your defense in that. And you don't give a great quarterback like Mahomes an extra down every single time, and you take the thought process out of Andy Reid once you do that.
Okay, we're gonna try this, guys. I'm gonna put this film up. Last time we had an audio issue with the film, so please let us know that you can still hear us when we put this up, so we can show this play. I believe we're about to see the play here, Damien, and we can break it down and talk about what we think here. This should be that fourth down play.
Is this the 4th and 1 in overtime?
So no, that's the 3rd down and 1 right now. So we should see this very next play should be the 4th down.
And this is overtime, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, this is the triple option basically.
Yeah, that's sprint option, right? Like that's the same play as we ran. I mean, normally we end up hitting that to Kelsey, but they covered it and they left Mahomes wide open for that run.
Gotcha. I consider it more. I guess it's not really a triple option because there's no look at handoff on that. But I mean, I don't think he's reading the handoff. I think it's either a keeper or a pass, is what I'm saying on that one. He has 2 other options to throw the ball to.
Yeah, I don't think
there's any design to hand the ball off.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think there's any design to hand the ball off.
But you look.
So to me, it's
when you look.
It's a sprint option, right? Yeah.
Yep. When you look right here, everything's covered.
Yeah.
Everything's covered. Warner does a great job of taking away that vertical, which is what killed the Ravens on that sprint option, right? So he took away the deeper cross there, but Mahomes is like, fine, give it to me, I'll take it.
Yeah, Mahomes talked about that play and said he could either keep it or throw it, and when he talked about that play.
Yeah, he literally said, "Hey, if it's not open right away, I'm running it," because it was less than a yard that you needed.
Yeah.
So
we're talking about the same thing basically. I called it a triple option, but it's not. There's no design of a handoff on that. It's pretty much fake handoff, sprint to the right.
There was a big read option though too, where Bosa crashed hard on a read option, and Mahomes ended up running that was like a 15-yard run, like you said. So I'll keep the film rolling over here on the other side, and I'll see if I come across that play. But yeah, I agree, man. Like, how do you not cover that though, man?
They took advantage of it and they ran it at the right time. I mean, that's all I can say. You just kind of hope that you cover it, you play everything. You can't guard everything. Every defense has one at least weakness where you can't guard everything. And Chiefs timed it right. They took advantage of Bosa's aggressiveness, and that's what happens. Like, they left him unblocked, and Bosa crashed down hard. If he plays it right, it's a whole different story.
Let's can we talk about this dumbass play real quick? We'll just watch this play here real quick and talk about how stupid it is. Like, what are you thinking? What are you thinking there?
The loss of yardage. It's an effort play, man. It happens. No one ever just wants to go down. So, I mean, to me, that was just an effort play.
Yeah,
it sucked because if he goes straight down, I mean, you get the yardage.
6 yards.
No, I know, man.
I was upset, man. I was upset, dude. I was like, man, this is effectively a 10-yard loss because you end up going 2nd and 14 at that point because you caught the ball 6-yard gain and it turns into a 4-yard loss. That's a net loss of 10.
Yeah, it was just one of those plays where the guy throws you, you don't really know where you're at, and then you end up taking a step backwards. I thought, and just it's you want to tell him to go down, but I mean,
When
adrenaline's
somebody throws
rushing.
you, when somebody throws you, do you not just fall down? Like, hey man, like,
No, I never would. No,
they throw me like that? Like, I'm
no.
falling down because I don't want to
My
end up
thought
losing
process.
yardage.
I know, but my thought process as a runner is like, oh, you didn't get me down. I'm breaking this. That's my thought process, man.
Fair enough. I just, that was something that Barry Sanders was famous for. Is like, yeah, he gained so many damn yards, it was unreal. But I think he lost more yardage than any running back in history too.
He did. He was an all-time leader in yardage loss.
Yeah, like sometimes he
And
just
that's
didn't know when to call it a day.
yep.
So yeah, I don't
So
know, man. That play pissed me off, but yeah.
so the first big play I kind of want to talk about was the 49ers in the second quarter holding the Chiefs to a punt. Or the Chiefs holding the 49ers to a punt. And the 49ers punting and Greenlaw running on the field tears his Achilles. That's kind of the first big play that I want to talk about. It wasn't an actual play, but it's a kind of a situation that happened in the game. It was very
Huge.
unfortunate.
It was huge, man. It was huge. Obviously, I mean, you don't want to see anybody get hurt seriously or anything like that. There were so many mixed emotions with that. I mean, as a fan and a guy that just wants to win the damn game, you're like, whew, shoot, don't have to deal with Greenlaw anymore. But just from a human being standard, like, man, that's terrible. I text my 49ers buddies. I'm like, hey man, that's rough. I'm sorry. I'm praying for your guy.
I mean, and it
I
just
can't
sucks to kind of
imagine
go
it.
out that way. You're not making a play. You're just running on the field.
Well, you talk about a non-contact injury, like you're just jogging onto the field. Lord Almighty! I talked to Coach T earlier about this, and he's had some injuries in his career. Greenlaw has. Do you not think about maybe just hanging it up?
I mean, it just depends on your love for the game. If
Yeah,
you're happy with what you've accomplished, then yeah, you can hang it up. Torn Achilles. I mean, people are coming back quicker and quicker from that.
yep.
But we'll see how long he's out for. I think he'll definitely miss probably the first part of the season next year. Would be my expectations with that. Is missing at least the first
You
6 to 8 games of the
Yeah, you're
year.
not back to late October, right?
No, I wouldn't think so. But with modern medicine and people getting healed, I mean, Aaron Rodgers was walking around and
Throwing
throwing
footballs, man.
passes 2 months into it. So, I mean, who knows?
Yeah, God bless him, man. Whatever he wants, I'm pulling for him. If he wants to come back and make a good comeback, then I'm all for that. I like Greenlaw. I was kind of a slow adopter of Greenlaw. To my buddy Jason's credit, he's a 49ers fan. He was telling me for a long time, oh, this Greenlaw he's a beast. And it didn't flash to me right away. So he's a guy that I've been wrong about, but he's amazing. He's an amazing player, and like I said last week, he's almost just as good as Fred Warner, which
Yeah.
is a high compliment.
And what sucks for the 49ers with that injury was I felt like it affected their covers that they didn't believe the linebacker coming on could guard Kelsey as well. So Warner got kind of stuck on Kelsey in some matchups later on in the game.
Yeah,
And Warner, he's good, but with him having to chase down a running back, then they're expecting him to come out and guard Kelsey. He's gonna get tired, man. It's just it's just physically exhausting for what that guy's gonna have to do. And it showed on some routes later on in that game.
for real, man.
I mean, yeah, even him trying to capture Mahomes on a scramble, it showed he was exhausted. He looked exhausted, and nothing against him. Just
Yep. Yeah, man. That defense definitely wore down eventually. Fred Warner is, like I alluded to last week, is a great cover guy. But I do think people tend to like overestimate his coverage ability a little bit. He's still a linebacker, like you can't be
yep.
putting him out on guys that he has no business covering. And
No,
they put him in some tough spots, and I don't like that as a coaching staff. I don't like that from
no.
Wilkes.
No, I don't think they wanted to though. Like I said, Greenlaw's injury, I think, kind of forced their hand on that a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I think they just kind of got stuck with that, and they were trusting Warner to do it because he's their go-to player. And I'm sure he was more than ready to try to step up to the challenge, and he just got beat on it. And
Yeah.
it's just an unfortunate break for the 49ers from that standpoint. But a great
Yeah.
job by the Chiefs for taking advantage of it.
He got beat real bad a couple of times. One
Yep.
was the. Let's see, which one did we just talk about? I don't want to bring up the one we just talked about.
The one he got beat real bad was on the final drive of regulation.
Yeah.
Him and He was lined up over Kelsey. Kelsey runs a crossing route.
Yep.
And Warner just had no chance to keep up with him.
Not even a chance. And I think actually producer Damien was bringing up a good point. We saw earlier today that I think on that particular play that Kelsey had hit a top speed that he hadn't hit in the last 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So Kelsey was juiced in that game, man. He was ready to go.
Adrenaline pumping, man. It does wonderful things for a person.
92 yards in the second half of the football game. It's crazy.
Yep.
So
great job by them. What did you think of the 40?
Ready to hang it up.
What did you think of the 49ers' lack of use of Kittle?
I was hoping you were going there. To me, it's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. What are you doing? Like, I don't think they utilize that guy enough, and I'm beginning to question whether they have too many weapons. Because guys get lost. Guys get lost in translation sometimes, and like they just disappear in the game plan. And you can't let George Kittle disappear in a game plan, especially when the only real weakness the Chiefs defense has shown all year is covering tight ends.
Yep. I thought Romo actually brought up a great point saying you are not going to beat this Chiefs defense throwing to your wideouts consistently. You've got to throw to other players. And I thought that was a great point that Romo brought up. Yep.
I said that last week. I was like, hey, man, what I'm not going to do, one of the first things I said for the 49ers offensive game plan was I'll tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to go test the corners on the outside. What did they do? They tried to go beat their head up against a wall because they're stubborn as hell. How did that work out for you? They were eating the zone when they started getting matchups through their motion and stuff and running those in-breaking routes, like I said in my game plan, and getting Ayuk on safeties and Ayuk on people that have no business guarding Ayuk. It was working out. When you put Ayuk on McDuffie or you put Ayuk on Snead, not so much. So I just don't know why you would go into the strength of somebody's defense and say, we're going to beat you there. I don't get that.
Now, one of the things Chris Jones said post-game that I heard him talking about in an interview, because he got asked the question of what adjustments did they make at halftime on the defensive end, because I think we can both agree first half it did seem like the 49ers could move the ball pretty well against the Kansas City offense first half. They were getting their yardage, getting up and down field. And one of the things Chris Jones said they adjusted on was they actually went away from zone as much in the second half and just went straight more man-to-man.
Yep.
Which is usually something Kyle Shanahan likes to do because he doesn't believe there's enough corners that can guard their receivers. But, of course, the Chiefs have that ability to do that. And so I thought that was a great adjustment by him.
The one, I agree, and the one matchup that I think they probably should have exploited a little more if they were going to pass the ball as much as they did was Juwan Jennings, and they didn't go at it enough. Because I think Juwan Jennings is a little bit better than people understand. Because I said last week that our corner room is 4 deep. It is. It's 4 deep. Like our number 3 and number 4 corners would start on a lot of teams. And he against our number 3 and our number 4 corner, he was getting open, man. He was making plays, and I don't think they went at that matchup quite enough. Honestly, had they won that football game, I think Juwan Jennings was the MVP of that game.
I mean, he was the second player in NFL history with a touchdown pass and a touchdown reception.
Yeah.
So he possibly might have been.
Yeah, so he made Super Bowl history. Speaking of Super Bowl history, I just want to talk about the kickers really quick. Like Moody comes out there and breaks a Super Bowl record right off the bat with a 55-yard field goal and just drains it, man. Like he could have easily hit it from 58, maybe even 60. And the kid's all juiced up and like, yeah, I own a Super Bowl record. You could tell he knew that it was a Super Bowl record. And 2 quarters later, Butker comes out there and breaks his record. Like, what do you tell? Like, if you're Moody, if you're Moody and you're a rookie kicker and you break a Super Bowl record and you're all jacked up and like, what are you telling your kids someday, man? Well, yeah, I held a Super Bowl record for 2 quarters.
Well, hopefully he's not telling his kids how he choked on an extra point and kicked it in the back of the head of a defensive lineman, basically.
It was a low kick. It was still blocked, though.
Yeah, it was low, but that kick was pretty much on him. I don't know if he lost his footing a little bit, but he came off his ankle a little bit more than it probably should have, and it was really low trajectory on that kick.
It definitely was on the kicker, but a lot of special teams players, maybe they don't make that play. Maybe they're not getting their hands up the way they should. We're very good on special teams, and if you give us an opportunity, we're going to take care of it. And that's what happened. Special teams was the difference in the game, ultimately.
It did prove to be ultimately the difference in the game. Mm-hmm. I kind of want to go into what I felt like was the most important drive, starting off the second half.
Yeah,
and that was when Mahomes throws the first interception in. Was it his first interception in the Super Bowl in 7 games or something? Of that
seven postseason games, I think, was the thing.
Yeah,
he's thrown picks in the Super Bowl before, but so I think that was probably the last time. It was 7, so he didn't throw one last year in the playoffs at all. He had gone all through this playoffs without throwing a pick. So, yeah, first in 7 games.
But yeah, the Chiefs' defensive stand after that interception, I felt was the game-changing plays in that scenario.
Yeah.
49ers started with possession at the Chiefs' 45, roughly around that area, and for the Chiefs' defense to hold on to a 3-and-out. And one of the big things that's been a big topic is the fact that Shanahan stopped running the ball, opened up the second half with what do we decide it was 7 out of 8 passes to start off the second half, something like that.
So it was 7 consecutive passes, but more importantly, it was 8 of the first 9 plays in the third quarter were pass plays. So they only ran it once on those first 3 drives, and they were all 3-and-outs, weren't they? Hello? Did we lose you? Okay, I think we lost him for a minute. He's fixing his comms. But, so I'm pretty sure that was 3 consecutive 3-and-outs. Can you hear us? All right, no big deal.
Sorry, go ahead and keep going, my man.
Yeah, no big deal. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure that was 3 consecutive 3-and-outs. What can you say about that defense, man? It's just an incredible defense. It made all the defense or all the difference in the game. Special teams, defense, and Patrick Mahomes are the reason you win that Super Bowl. The offense was not very good all year, and it kind of reared its ugly head a little bit again. But then you go back and you look at the stats of it, and Patrick Mahomes accounted for like 400 yards of offense. So you say, hey, the Niners defense did pretty good, but did they? I don't know. Not really.
So, sorry, I lost audio for just a second. I missed a lot of what you said. I'm sure it was good stuff, so I do apologize for that. I caught just the very end of what you just said.
Hey, man.
I lost audio for just a second.
I didn't hear none of that shit you just said, but I'm pretty sure it was good.
But I caught the end, and I did hear a stat where they did say Mahomes accounted for 87% of the Chiefs' offense, somewhere around that. So, I mean, I did catch the end of that.
Well, it wasn't like Pacheco got shut down. I mean, Pacheco did a nice little job. He had 60-something yards rushing. I mean, it's not – you always want to get to that 100 as a back, but, he did his thing. And he had, I think, 99 or 97 from scrimmage because he caught 30 yards of passes. So, as running, I think you're pretty happy with that. You pretty much got to your 100 there.
I wasn't happy with the way the Chiefs attacked the 49ers offense with Pacheco.
Yeah,
they did a little bit too many inside runs trying to get that going, but they obviously saw something that they liked. But I thought they when they actually did run a pin and pull, which you talked about last week, toward the goal line, Pacheco got, I think it was an 8-9 yard carry, some of that effect.
And they had improved a little bit on the pin and pull defense, but when we did run it, like we did get some big gains on it. It's like, okay, guys, why are you going away from the pin and pull? This is one of those things me and Patterson were talking about earlier. Is play callers get, and you and I have talked about it. You know, like they get bored or something and think they need to vary their calls. You don't need to vary your calls. You really don't. If you find something that's working, just keep going at it.
Yeah, keep going with what's working. I don't know why teams go away from that so much, but they do on occasion. It's just, I think offensive play callers get bored and they're just like, yeah, I know I can keep running this play over and over again, but I don't want to. Something I was actually terrified for the Chiefs from was Shanahan has been known, and he won an NFC Championship game by only throwing the ball 4 times. And that's what kind of shocks me, that he actually went away from running the ball so much, because he's proven he will do it if he needs to.
I don't know why he didn't. I don't know. I mean, I think part of it is the Patrick Mahomes effect. When you got that guy on the other side, you feel like you got to do more than you actually do on offense, and it ends up screwing you over a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, you think, oh, I got to go score. I got to go be amazing on offense. And sometimes just run the football, man. That's okay. Did we lose you again? Hey, guys, hit me up in the comments. If you guys got anything you want to talk about in the comments. If you like what we're doing, give us a like, a share, a subscribe. Okay, no problem, man. So give us a like, a share, a subscribe. Hit us up in the comments if there's something you want to talk about. If there's something that in the Super Bowl that really irked you, or something that is bugging you about the Super Bowl. I thought they called a really good game as far as the referees. I thought everything was good there. Just real quick here, guys. Sorry. I'm just communicating with him over chat. So, because we've lost comms. Sorry about this, guys. Uh-oh. All right. So, while he's getting his comm stuff figured out, we'll talk other issues. So, I about had a heart attack, man. I really felt like, man, that game nearly slipped out of our hands several times. The biggest one was right there at the end of regulation. I think you get down to a 3rd and 4, and I think they're in the high red zone there. And if you do anything but hold them to a field goal, the game is lost. Like the 3rd and 4, if they get that first down, the game is over. And Spags went out of his way to solve that problem. Hey, are you up, D-Rob?
I'm back. My apologies. My audio keeps going in and out.
Don't know. Hey, no big deal, man. No big deal. I was talking about the end of regulation when it's like the game is on the line. You get down to 3rd and 4, and the 49ers are 3rd and 4, and if they get a first down, they win the game. And
yeah, I'm actually surprised Shanahan didn't run the ball there.
I am too. I don't understand it.
And for me, for a couple reasons, because A, even if the Chiefs stuff you, at least you force them to burn a timeout at that moment and put them down to 1. And B, get the ball to McCaffrey, man. Get the ball in his hands. And if you get to 4th and 1, maybe you consider going for it and trying to ice the game right there, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it kind of shocked me that they didn't run the ball in that situation. We talked about it offline a little bit, how Spags did a really great job of first down blitzing, doing some run blitzes, and on 3rd down and short or medium, blitzing and making the 49ers rush, especially in that second half. Spags did a great job of that. And when he got to 3rd and long, he relied on his coverage a little bit more.
I don't have the full analytics on the game yet, but what I thought was interesting is the initial report I heard had the Chiefs somewhere around 50% of the time blitzing. So that's a healthy amount of blitzing. I mean, that's a lot. Most people are.
Oh yeah.
What would you consider a high blitz rate?
A high blitz rate, I would consider 30 to 40.
That's
To
what
me,
I
it
was
would be a
going to
high
say.
blitz rate.
That's exactly what I was going to
Percent would be
say.
a high blitz rate.
So I just wanted to give everybody perspective on that. Like, what is a lot of blitzing? 30, 35%, 40% is a lot of blitzing. So when you hear somebody's up around 50%, that's mad scientist stuff, man.
Yeah, that's them trying to set the tempo or set the tone going against you. That's one of the things I think teams should do more against a Shanahan type team. Now, everyone doesn't have the players that the Chiefs have to try to pull that off, and that's the biggest issue with that. But teams that are specialized in special offense.
Oh, hey, we've lost you again. We've lost you again. We can't hear you. All right, so I think, what he's getting at is you really got to attack Purdy and, like, not knocking Purdy. I'm not knocking Purdy at all. But we showed that you can make Purdy look more like an average quarterback if you pressure him up the middle. And that's really where you want to live with that. You don't want to be in a situation where you're just letting him sit back there, which at the beginning of the game, a lot of his really nice passes, he was getting a very, very nice pocket. And that was a big deal, man. That was quite a big deal. Hey, hit us up in the comments, guys. Give me some stuff to talk about. If you guys want to interact, that's always appreciated. It makes the program more interesting. And Damien is having a little bit of technical difficulties. It's never as easy to sit here and have a conversation with yourself. So while we're waiting on D-Rob to get his stuff fixed, let's have a conversation about stuff, man. Tell us what you think. One of the things that I thought the 49ers missed out on was using Kyle Juszczyk a little bit more. I thought that guy was an absolute weapon. I think they needed to have him in the game even more than they did. I know the fullback is kind of considered to be a dying position in the NFL, but I don't really consider Kyle Juszczyk a fullback anyway. I consider him more of an H-back, to be honest, but I'm curious whether the guy even really has a true position, because when he goes out for passes, he plays like a wide receiver. He actually beat Snead in single coverage at one point. Oh, you know what, Marlon? You're right, man. The protection adjustments were fantastic by Mahomes and Reed. So they did something with protection there. I haven't got a chance to break down the all 22. It just came out earlier this afternoon. I will be interested to see in what they did for the protection there. Looks like Damien may be back. Are you back? No, we still got no mic, man. Boo! Boo! Well, this sucks, man. All right, so having significant technical difficulties here. But yeah, man. The protection adjustment was fantastic. But also, I think Chase Young didn't have the same effort level as he had in that first half, man. That first half, he was bringing it. Chase Young was an issue. He was getting right by Donovan Smith, who is just kind of a guy. Hey, there you are. Hey, we got you back.
You got me?
Yeah, we got you back.
All right, I had to switch some headphones up and
all right,
go back to the studio type sets, and we're good.
Good, man. Good. Yeah, the audio's nice. I was, all right, man. My back was starting to hurt from carrying you, bro.
That's all right, man.
Oh, dude. But no, we were talking. Marlon brought up the adjustment that Mahomes and Andy Reid made to protection in the second half, because he was not sacked in the second half at all.
Yeah, they did a great job with that. Um, I thought that the way Mahomes was manipulating the pocket kind of helped slow down the pass rush of the 49ers as well. And once he kind of got that slowdown going, I thought he did a great job. Chase Young, like I said, he disappeared in the second half completely. I don't even remember him putting a pressure on Mahomes in the second half, unfortunately. So I don't know what happened there with him. Bosa, great effort by him. He was getting there always just seemed like a half step too late, but he was getting hits on Mahomes. He was just always a half step too late. But I think a lot of that was just done by the way Mahomes manipulated the pocket, stepping around. But I do think the 49ers did an overall good job of containing Mahomes, but they just weren't able to close it out at the very end with it. And the Chiefs, I think, did a great job of setting up some plays and realizing the coverage that the 49ers were in a lot. They figured out how to read the 49ers coverage with some of the motions that they did, and I thought that was pretty huge for them.
Well, they got him into man in some pretty critical situations too. Now that I have the all 22 and I can actually see what the hell is going on, they ended up getting man. Everybody knows I'm not a huge fan of the broadcast. I can't stand it. If you could show me all 22 for the broadcast, that's fine. Like, I don't need any of the hoopla. Just give me some yard markers and some graphics up there. I'm happy. But probably most people enjoy the B-roll footage and all that kind of stuff, but I hate it. But yeah, that last play, which, what a crazy way to end the Super Bowl. You end up basically ending the Super Bowl this year with the same play you ended this last year's Super Bowl with.
Yeah. The great thing I thought about that play was
excuse me.
Kelsey, as soon as he saw that cornerback commit to him, knew it was a touchdown.
Yep.
If you watch Kelsey on the replay, he didn't even run a route. As soon as he sees that cornerback come to him, he's just basically looking at the big screen and basically putting his hands up as soon as he just steps to the line.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Let's talk some stats real quick, because some of our viewers have said that they like to hear stats. So let's compare the two quarterbacks real quick. So Brock Purdy, 23 for 38, 255, 6.7 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. He took care of the ball very well. He had a long pass of only 24 yards. He was sacked once, and he had a quarterback rating of 89.3. Any thoughts on that before we talk about anybody else?
Well, my feelings on Purdy is he played about as solid as you could expect him to play against that great defense. I was watching First Take this morning. Stephen A. and Shannon Sharp were a little bit all over Purdy, saying he didn't prove anything. To me, if you look at it statistically, he had the second best game against the Chiefs this playoff run.
Yep.
He played better than Tua. He played better than Lamar statistically. He's basically up there with Josh Allen as far as the way statistically they played that game. And Chiefs defense is nothing to sneeze at or anything to that effect with it. Chiefs defense is solid.
If you go by quarterback rating, he was actually the best out of everybody, to include Josh Allen.
Yeah.
But I think if you go by the eye test a little bit, I think Josh Allen did a little better, personally. What do you think about that?
Well, I like the way that Purdy escaped some blitzes and he made some plays. I'm mostly thinking of the play in overtime where he escaped a sack or he felt the pressure and he knew McCaffrey was right there in the flat. Didn't panic or anything to that effect with it. He said, this is where my guy's at, and that's the play that McCaffrey goes up the sideline for I think that was his 24-yard pass.
Huge play. Yeah, huge play.
Yeah.
McCaffrey, man, that dude's got some wheels.
And the play to Juszczyk, which they called it a catch. I've always said if that's a catch, Dez's was a catch, but that's a whole nother story and everything.
He saw Dez chimed in on it.
He did, because that's the point of it. If that's a catch, Dez's was a catch.
Yeah.
But, I mean, even that play itself, he had to basically bust out of the pocket, make a guy miss, and he completes a pass there. If it wasn't for Chris Jones, I'll be perfectly honest, Chris Jones saved 2 touchdowns that I can think of, and I heard a broadcaster mention he actually stopped 3 touchdowns by the Chiefs with his pass rush. So
yeah, and you know what? That's the kind of stuff that D linemen do not get credit for. It doesn't go on their stat sheet. There's no stat for a D lineman to say prevented touchdown through rush. right?
No.
Like,
Hey, you look at Chris Jones. You think about it. He prevented Josh Allen from completing that one touchdown pass on Bill's final drive, and you look
yep,
at what he's done in the Super Bowl. And I mean, that guy, he could easily be the MVP of this team this year with the way he's played in the playoffs.
yep. Which I'll comment on this because I mean, eventually we'll start talking about this stuff. But I think at this point, with a three-peat as the goal, you kind of go a little bit orthodox, and you just pay the man. You pay
No,
him.
I think you have to.
Don't
I
let
think
him
you
hit
have.
free agency.
No,
I know the
I think
Chiefs kind of
Mahomes
have
will.
an aversion to signing anybody around 30, and Chris Jones is about to hit 30 years old, and I think they don't like to sign 30-year-olds to big contracts, which is understandable and probably wise. But I think with this, you just kind of you go all in and you take a gamble and you sign the guy, and maybe you have him a little bit longer than he is effective. Maybe he starts to go downhill at the end of his contract, but you take that risk, do you not?
No, there's no way you let Chris Jones go. In my opinion, you pay the man, pay him what he's worth, and you make the run for as long as you can.
If he hits,
Something that
if he
I
hit,
heard that I didn't realize was the choice between when Tyreek Hill got traded. I heard the choices between him and Chris Jones. So
Mhm.
looking back at that, the Chiefs made the right choice on who they were going to pay.
Well, yeah. So let's dive into that for a moment, because now you can clearly say that the Chiefs made the right decision on the Tyreek Hill trade, because obviously the results are two touchdowns immediate or two Super Bowls immediately. But uh, if you go a little deeper into it, a lot of that, what is also the youngest defense in the NFL and maybe the second best or best defense in the league, a lot of that came from the Tyreek Hill trade. A lot of those picks
Yes, it did.
were from Tyreek Hill. So the McDuffie pick in particular was Tyreek Hill. So you don't get Trent McDuffie if you don't trade Tyreek Hill, and now you got an All-Pro second-year corner, first-team All-Pro, by the way. And then you got a bunch of other guys on that defense that came from the Tyreek Hill trade. That defense is amazing, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Nope. And you got Spags calling it for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're gonna be solid. But
It
didn't mean to
kind
go
of
away from Brock. Go ahead.
it kind of boggles my mind that people don't take a run at Spags for head coach.
I think it's because he's had his chance as a head coach, and I don't think people want to go back to that, especially with the new age, the way they're doing it now. They want a young offensive coach
Yeah.
to usually take over. So I think that's the reason why he's not getting that run.
Oh, hey, look at the. I mean, yep. Marlon just brought up the same point, man. Like, yes. I think Spags deserves another shot, but I agree with you. Actually, I don't think he's going to get one. I
No,
think
I
it's
don't think he will either.
no. That's
Unless
just
Andy Reid steps down and the Chiefs just name him coach.
I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with that. I prefer an offensive coach because I'm an offensive guy, and I've seen too often when the Chiefs hire a defensive guy, the offense gets neglected, and like I went through some really bad. Like Herman Edwards was, God bless him. I love Herm, I really do, but I don't ever want to see him as a head coach again. Like it's just bad. The guy literally tries to go out there and win a game by a field goal. It's terrible, and he's like happy about it. And it's
Hey,
like,
win's a
no,
win.
I get it. I get it. I do. But hey, there's three phases of the game, and if I don't think you're a good head coach if you neglect any of the phases of the game. That's
Nope, I
my
don't
point.
disagree. Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
But I didn't mean to go away from Purdy. I was talking to some buddies earlier. I think Purdy's a top 5 NFC quarterback right now.
Okay.
I got him ahead of Dak, just based on what he's done in his young tenure so far. So I think Purdy's solid. I got nothing against Purdy. We did compare Purdy and Jalen Hurts, me and my buddies. And the thing that I said was this. I don't think the 49ers offense would be as good with Jalen Hurts QB in it, the same way I don't think the Eagles offense would be as good with Purdy QB in it. And that's kind of the way I feel about those two quarterbacks.
I will answer that, but I have to acknowledge this chat.
Yeah,
you play to win the game. Hello. Oh, God bless him. I truly love Herm. Like, I love the dude. But gosh damn, that was hard as a head coach. Anyway, so yeah, you go back and you talk about Purdy and where he fits into the elite conversation. I said something going into this game that I didn't think there was anything I could see from Purdy that would knock him down. Like, I don't think you could penalize him for anything that happened in this game. I'm going to stick by that. Saying that he's a top 5 NFC quarterback, I put him as a top 5 quarterback. Maybe I did that a little early, but I'm going to stick by it because I said I can't penalize the guy. I saw some stuff in the game plan. I had alluded to the fact that he's not the strongest arm and that he has trouble getting those outside throws to the sideline, and we saw that in the game. And there was a few throws in the game that you expect those elite quarterbacks to make, and he couldn't get them done. But he's still a young guy. So, I don't want to knock him for what I saw in the Super Bowl. I don't want to have an overreaction Monday, if you will. So I'm going to stick by him and say he's still in that top 5 for now. He's got to come out he's got to come out and look better at the beginning of next year. I want to see improvement from him, So I want to see him take that next step forward and start taking games over.
Yeah, I mean that's basically the only next step that he has to do, and I'll argue with you that he took 2 games over when they played Green Bay and Detroit in the playoffs, and he did in those 2 games.
Yeah, I'm not going to push back on that. I agree, he did. Yeah. It's just I was a little disappointed with his performance, to be completely honest, and I'm glad because I got a Super Bowl out of the deal, but just out of a purely objective view of it, if I'm not a Chiefs fan, then, I'm disappointed a little bit in Brock Purdy. And I get those guys on First Take ragging on him a little bit. He had some plays that he should have probably made and didn't. But you can't take it away from the Chiefs' defense, man. That's a spectacular defensive unit.
Yeah, and that's my thing with it. That's why I won't take anything away from him, because the Chiefs have a top-notch defense. It's not like he was going out there against a defense that consistently gives up 500-600 yards of offense. He's taking on top defense.
One thing I want to talk about, too, is this is the first time Mahomes has ever won a Super Bowl with a top 10 defense.
Yep. I mean, Chiefs are loaded, man. Chiefs are loaded. The Chiefs are loaded.
Yeah.
I got 2 people who might take care of it in the future, and I'll bring those up later.
If you start looking at what you can do this offseason real quick, just to go off on a little bit of a tangent, what all you really got to do is you need a number 2 receiver, and you don't really care how you get it. So a guy that I'm thinking of, because I think we're going to go sign Chris Jones, I think we're going to sign L'Jarius Sneed, which doesn't leave us a ton of money to play with. I think you might be able to get a guy named Hunter Renfrow out of Las Vegas. I
was thinking DeAndre Hopkins.
You might. I would be okay with that. I'm happy with that if that happens, but I think that Las Vegas has completely fallen out of love with Hunter Renfrow. They weren't even using him towards the end of the season at all. He's got a high cap number, so I'm thinking a cut is coming for him. And if you're chasing a three-peat and you're a guy that's maybe a little jaded and a little irritated with the Raiders organization, where's a better place to go than Kansas City and go hand it to the Raiders twice a year for the rest of your career? I don't know. To me, it fits, and then maybe you can draft a guy too. Maybe you can get like a Troy Franklin that'll take the top off the defense and see what happens.
Most definitely. But I was thinking DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think Tennessee's going to re-sign him. I think he'll be cut. Yeah. And I can see DeAndre Hopkins going to Kansas City on a little bit of a reduced salary to get himself try to get himself a championship.
I hope so. Do you think because of the history, this was something I was kind of discussing with my buddies earlier, because of the unique situation they're in to chase that three-peat, do you think you can lure some guys for some lower contracts for 1 year? Hey, let's go get a three-peat.
I think you can get some older veterans. I
Yeah.
don't think you're going to get the young upstarts or anything. Like, I don't think you're going to get Higgins from Cincinnati. He's going to be a free agent this year. Like, you're not going to get him. But
I think we were going to get him, but I think now, like I alluded to, you can't let Chris hit free agency, so you got to spend
correct.
the T. Higgins money on Chris.
Yep.
Yeah, so I agree with that. You can't have everybody. I think we're not going to spend like we were because we ended up winning the Super Bowl. It changed our off-season plans significantly, in my opinion.
It might have. We'll see. The Chiefs organization right now is doing really well evaluating talent, so we'll see what they end up going for.
But it was a flawed roster. Let's not play. Like, Mahomes covered a lot of shit. Let's just be honest. He covered up a lot of flaws and a lot of ugly spots on that roster, and wide receivers number one. Let's not forget they led the league in fucking drops.
No, they definitely did. But one of me and my buddies, we were talking, and we said if the Chiefs actually didn't drop passes, they probably only lose 2 games this year.
If
Probably
that.
only 2 games they lost this year.
I mean, yeah, for real. Like, and that honestly, that might be conservative. I think every game that I watched, if you don't drop balls, if you have the same drop rate that the 49ers had, you might be undefeated. Which is
I won't
scary.
give you the Raiders game on Christmas Day. I won't give you that game.
Right. And yeah, I was at that game. Obviously, that game was. But yeah, I don't know if your receivers aren't deficient. Maybe you never even get in that spot.
Yeah, possibly.
Because like being at that game and watching it, like the back-to-back defensive touchdowns is what broke that game open.
Yep.
So Marlon thinks Chiefs are only going to retain 2 wide receivers, Rice and maybe Hardman. So we were talking about Hardman earlier today, a couple of my friends. I think Hardman probably sticks around on a really low contract if they want him, which I don't know why you wouldn't if you can get him for cheap. If you can get him for $1 million or something, yeah, sure. Justin Ross will stay with the team. He's kind of a project guy. He was a really big-time college football player that got hurt and probably would have been a first-round pick. And he's just been recovering from those injuries and a disease that he has. But he's shown flashes of being a dude, and he just didn't get much playing time. So he will stay. MVS will be gone. Justin Watson probably gone because you can save a significant amount of money by cutting him, and he's just kind of a guy. He's a great special teamer, though. Sky Moore, I don't know what the contract looks like with him. If you can cut him and save money, he's going into his 3rd year of his rookie deal. So if you can save a little money of cutting him, or maybe somebody will give you a 7th-round pick or something for him, you know.
I could see him getting traded.
Yeah, and then of course we've already discussed Kadarius Toney has played his last football with Kansas City, so he's gone. So yeah, the receiver room will look significantly different, but I don't know. That's for the best. I mean, that's kind of the scary thing about it. If you're everybody else, right? Is like we've watched the Chiefs before have a deficient team when we played Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl. And they just embarrassed our tackles. They were backup tackles, and both of our starting tackles were hurt. We immediately cut those starting tackles because they couldn't stay healthy. It was Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz at the time was one of the best right tackles in the game, if not the best right tackle in the game, but he had a career-ending injury. So he ended his career, and then you immediately completely went out and redid the offensive line with Orlando Brown, and you drafted Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith and Joe Tooney. I mean, they threw everything at that offensive line and transformed it in one offseason. I think they're going to do the same thing this year. It'll be interesting to see how they do it in the wide receiver room. They're going to do it.
Nope, I definitely think they will. Chiefs are set, man. They're loaded, man. Chiefs are loaded.
What do you do if you're the Niners? Let's talk some Niners. Is this panic mode for them?
It shouldn't be. They got Purdy under that young contract. If you're the 49ers, you just look for some offensive line help. I'm not sure how healthy Debo's always going to be. So that's the one question mark that they probably do have with that receiving group. Kittle's left that game banged up.
Did you ever feel like Debo put his fingerprints on that game?
No. And we discussed it, though, where I always felt like Debo's going to make some splash plays. He had the reverse, and then he had the injury, which I'm assuming was a cramp because there's no way he was running the way he was running if he pulled his hamstring. There's just no way.
Yeah, that was
he was running that way.
A strain or something, right?
Yeah, it had to be something like that. But when we talked, I said, like, Debo's going to make a play here or there, but just he's not the guy you got a game plan for necessarily.
I really don't remember any big plays he made. He made that 9-yard jet sweep.
Yep, that was about it. They went to him deep twice, and both of them were incomplete
because of coverage too. Like they were on his ass like white on rice, man.
Yeah.
So
something that the Chiefs did. Sorry, something that the Chiefs did really well was, and they did it with McCaffrey as well. They didn't give them space to run their routes as efficiently. Chiefs got up on them quickly and early. And that was something that I like that the Chiefs really game planned for against those 49er, especially their breakout players, was getting up in them, crowding the space, and not letting them get room to do anything that they wanted to do.
Yeah, and, something they talked about with that was that, last year, 6 of the starters on defense were rookies. 6 of them.
Yep.
So those 6 guys are all now second-year players, and the coaching staff was kind of talking about when they came into camp and everything. Andy specifically said, it was a little scary because all of a sudden those guys kind of grew up, and the zones were a little tighter, the man was a little tighter, everything was just a little bit more fundamental and a little bit scarier, and it was harder to play. And I saw it in training camp when I went to see the Chiefs in training camp. The defense dominated, man. They dominated.
They dominated. They dominated all year. So, statistically, Mahomes became the second quarterback to lead his team in rushing and win a Super Bowl, I believe, if I heard that correctly.
Yep, I didn't know that.
The second quarterback of all time to do that. Yep. I think Steve Young was the first. I think was what I remember. I can't remember exactly who was first, but Patrick Mahomes became the second quarterback to do that all time.
Yeah, 9 carries, 66 yards, 7.3 yards per carry. He had a long of 22. Man, I didn't really realize. I knew he was right around in there, but I didn't realize he had that much rushing yards. That dude took over with his legs, man. Took over.
Well, it's kind of funny because I remember we talked about game plans, and I said I wouldn't spy Mahomes. I'd spy the running back. It looks like the 49ers definitely did that.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's funny is on that last play in the Super Bowl, the game-winning touchdown to McColl, they actually did spy him with Warner, which took Warner out of coverage. So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly. Sometimes to me, you got to rely on that defensive line to make some plays, and they look like they wore down, and Mahomes took advantage.
The first half, I mean, man, like that defensive line was dominant. You and I talked about that off camera where both sides of the ball, really the offensive and defensive line of the 49ers looked like they were going to run away with the game. And I don't know, part of it was play calling, part of it was the Chiefs making adjustments, but for some reason they just eventually stopped going to it. And I don't think let me pose this as a question to you rather than make it a statement. If I told you a week ago that the 49ers were going to throw 38 times, what would you say? What would your response be?
I would think it'd be a shootout, that the Chiefs were putting up a ton of points, if you told me that.
Mm-hmm. So
I honestly thought Purdy would be around 24 pass attempts is where I predicted going in, where I thought Purdy would be at.
Yeah. Yeah, and the over-under, Vegas had the over-under on his completions at like 20. He only hit 23 completions, but That might be one of the worst completion percentages he's had. His completion percentage is usually high.
Do you think the 49ers got McCaffrey the ball enough? He had 30 touches. They attempted, what was it, 8? I mean, he caught all 8 of his targets, 22 carries, 8 receptions. Do you think they gave it to him enough with 30 touches, or do you think they should have been giving it to him more?
Well, you know what? I'm looking at the stats right now, too, and something that I will say, we're kind of beating up the 49ers for not running the football more. But let's be realistic and talk about this for a second. You got Christian McCaffrey with 22 carries for 80 yards and 3.6 yards per carry. Most offensive play callers are not going to be happy with 3.6 yards per carry.
And let's remember with that, I don't even think he was averaging 3 yards a carry until that final drive in overtime when he started breaking off a few different, little bit longer runs.
He did gash him a little bit on that overtime drive. That did probably bring his average up pretty significantly.
Yeah.
So he was probably down around 3 yards a carry going into that. So can you really blame them for going away from the run? They stuck with it. I mean, 22 carries is a significant amount. And then you had Debo had 3 carries that were for nothing. They shut every time Debo carried the ball, they shut it down with the exception of that 1 9-yard jet sweep. But he averaged 2.7 yards a carry out of that because his other 2 carries were for losses. And then you gave the ball to Kyle Juszczyk once, and he had 2 yards. Hey, he's a fullback. That's what we do. And then Elijah Mitchell had 2 carries, 8 yards, 4 yards a carry. Elijah Mitchell did look pretty explosive when he touched the ball. He didn't touch it much.
No, didn't touch it enough.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. Like, I guess to answer your question directly, I do think they went to him enough because he got. Let's look at his receiving numbers because that's where he really made his impact.
He had 8 for 80.
Yeah, 8. Yeah. So yes, Christian touched the ball enough. I think Kittle didn't touch the ball enough to go back to that conversation. 3 targets, 2 receptions, 4 yards out of your first team All-Pro tight end. I just don't like the way they use him a lot of times, man. It's annoying. You have a
I don't know if they were
more.
Yeah. I don't know if they were keeping him in to pick up blitzes initially. I don't know if that was their initial thought. But they didn't have Youssef on the field or fullback enough either, in my opinion.
Yeah, Juszczyk needed to be on the field more. But so, something that always kind of frustrates me is the argument of who's better, Kittle or Kelsey. I don't think it's all that close, to be completely honest with you. And people will point to Kittle's blocking and say, he's a phenomenal blocker. Yes, he is a phenomenal blocker. But that's really not the modern game, man. Like, you can do some things with that, but you're taking him out of his most dangerous area, which to me, Kittle had a 1,000-yard season this year, and he should have a 1,000-yard season all the time.
Yeah. I thought that argument went away 4 years ago. I think 4 years ago is when there was an argument with it.
It popped back
Kelsey,
up.
To me, Kelsey distanced himself a little bit from Kittle since that time.
And my argument is too, like, Kelsey is asked to do things that Kittle is not asked to do.
Correct.
So they're different. They're used differently. I love them both. I really do love Kittle. And at one point, my absolute just dream was for Kittle and Kelsey to be both on the Chiefs, because I just thought that would be disgusting. But, and they're good friends too. So.
Yeah.
But that'll probably never happen. But that's just like a play caller's dream, man, to have 2 guys like that. Because what do? You can come out in that 12, 13 personnel anytime you want. And as a defensive coordinator, what are you thinking? Well, I got to protect against the run, but now I can throw to either one of those guys, and they're just as good as receivers.
Now, something that could happen that I'd be interested to see happen, not saying it will, a Kelsey and Kelsey reunion in Kansas City. Not saying it's going to happen.
I had heard people talking about that today. McAfee talked about it today, didn't he?
I think he mentioned it.
Yeah. It would be interesting. I know they were kind of busting on Creed Humphrey a little bit for the low snaps. Let's be real. Creed Humphrey is one of the absolute best centers in the league. I got a clip somewhere. I think Patterson sent it to me of him taking Warner to the bus.
Yep, I saw that.
Yeah. So, Creed's not going anywhere. We're going to end up paying him. But, what you could end up happening, and this is kind of the scenario where I see Jason Kelsey maybe being a Chief. If he does decide to play and Trav talks him into it, maybe you walk away from Joe Tooney because he's got the pec, and you can save $16 million on the cap by making him a post-June 1 cut. And maybe you can get Kelsey in to play center, and you move Creed over to guard for a year, and now you're pretty set and probably saved money in doing it.
Yeah.
So that
now all that's not necessarily going to happen. Kelsey's under one more year contract with the Eagles. He's through.
I thought he was a free agent.
The Eagles can opt out, I believe, at the end of this year. I looked up his contract, and there's an opt out option somewhere in there, but technically he's under contract for one more year, I believe.
Gotcha. Yeah, that changes things. Yep. I had heard somewhere on a radio program or something that he was a free agent.
Yeah, I thought he was as well, but I looked it up on Over the Cap, and he had one more. He had another option year, one more year. One more year under.
So I would unequivocally say that's not going to happen. I don't think Kelsey would do that to Eagles fans either. I think he's super loyal to Eagles.
I don't think he would either, but never know, man. Brotherly love.
It would be super cool, man, to go play with your brother one more time. I mean, they played together at Cincy.
Yep.
So that would be super cool, man. I don't know if I want that to happen because Travis might start getting ideas about retiring after that year.
Hey, if you three-peat, man, everything's up in the air.
Dude, that's a thing too, right? Like that's one of those bittersweet things. If you do accomplish a once-in-a-lifetime, nobody's ever done it before in the NFL thing, guys might start thinking, I'm going to go out on absolute top. Why not? Why wouldn't you?
Might as well.
Yeah.
I think there's only one guy in the AFC that I think could save the NFL from a three-peat. There's only one player I think that could do it.
Who?
Joe Burrow. It's the only guy I think that could do it, man. That's the only hope. That's the only hope for the AFC, man. That can stop the Chiefs from doing a three-peat.
So let me ask you this. If healthy Joe Burrow was the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs this year, do they go to the Super Bowl?
I think they might. Joe Burrow's a beast, man. I got nothing but respect for Joe Burrow. Something about that dude. Something with his leadership, everything to that with it. I don't know if he makes the same plays Mahomes makes with the legs. Yeah. So that would come into question with it. So that's the one entity. I mean, I'm not going to say 100% that they would do it with Joe Burrow. Yeah. But with that defense, the Chiefs had anything's possible. So that's why I can't say they wouldn't.
Maybe. I look at he's and I feel a little guilty about making this argument because Mahomes got this argument early in his career. Look at the weapons, but he does have a ton of weapons.
Yes, he does.
So it'll be interesting to see if things change for him because that roster is absolutely going to change. And Marlon makes a point here. Burrow brings similar belief from his teammates that Mahomes brings with the Chiefs. I would agree with that. That completely. It's almost a damn cult. Like I look at your boy Jamar Chase. Chiefs live rent free in his head, man. He's over there talking all kinds of nonsense, dude, just all the time for no reason. Chase, we ain't even thinking about you, bro. And he's over here talking about, oh, they ain't like that. They ain't like. Well, yeah, we are like that, man. Like, I don't know what your deal is, dude.
No, there's no one that can say anything about the Chiefs. You talked about them moving the goalposts every year for the Chiefs, and it's like you said. First, can they do it without Tyreek? Yeah. This year it was, can they do it without Bieniemy? Can they do it on the road? They've proven that. I mean, I don't know what's next for them as far as any kind of proof that's possibly needed for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, I was talking to some of the guys today, and I was also talking to some of my friends. It's an interesting feeling, man, to have your team in this position because it almost feels like the pressure never stops; it only increases. And I think about Patriots fans for all of those years, and I kind of know what they were going through because the Chiefs have become the absolute number one villain of the entire NFL.
No, I know you say that.
Dude, everybody hates them. Everybody hates the Chiefs. They're tired of seeing them. Chiefs fatigue is a real thing. They don't want to see it anymore, which I get. I mean, I understand. People hate success. But I don't know, man. Like, there's always something next, is what I'm getting at. The pressure never alleviates. And I thought about it during the Super Bowl. If Mahomes loses that Super Bowl, then all of a sudden all the haters come out and it's, well, he's 2-2 in Super Bowls. Is he really that good?
I personally would have disagreed with it. I don't think it would have came out that way. It could have. You're in those Chief fan bases a little bit more with paying attention to what they say about Mahomes a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like I said, I got Mahomes as number 2 going into that game of all
Yeah.
time, just based on what he's already done. So,
But now you're 3-1. You got a little bit of a cushion. I will say that. But I think there are going to be the crowds, and Skip Bayless is the leader of that crowd. It's like
he's a leader of every crowd, man.
Oh my God, man! Where he's going to be like, well, he couldn't three-peat. So is he that good?
Now, I will say this: something that the media has kind of ticked me off with is the fact that they keep bringing up this 3 championships in 5 years things, where it's the Chiefs, the Steelers. I think it was the 49ers and the Cowboys that won 3 Super Bowls in 5 years. I think it was those 4. Maybe 49ers weren't included. I can't 100% remember for sure if the 49ers were included in that. But this is what ticks me off about it. There's only one team that's won 3 out of 4 years. There's only one team that's done that. And I'm tired of them putting the Cowboys in this 3 out of 5 year thing, man. There's only one team that's won 3 out of 4 years, man.
We'll fix that for you.
Put the Chiefs and all of them in that other spot. That's all I'm saying. Give us a 3 out of 4 year.
I gotta give it to you. I gotta give that to you. I know if I was a Cowboys fan, I know I would want that. So I'll give it to you, man, for sure.
So that's all I'm saying. Just give us ours. Don't put us in that other category, 3 out of 5, man. We 3 out of 4. That's all I want in that situation.
Yeah, that's for sure, man. Niners fans, though, they're hurting today because they wanted that 6th.
Oh, they did. I talked to some Niner fans, and when they found out they were playing the Chiefs, they were like, that's who we wanted. That's what they were saying. But
yep.
It's a no-go for them.
But turns out you didn't. Turns out you really didn't want that.
It's like I said, they lost, but, it's an overtime game. Can't hate on the 49ers for losing an overtime game.
Hey, I know we've been on for a minute, but I want to talk about going into that overtime and kind of what my thoughts were on that. Like, it was kind of a weird experience because I was super high tension, super high nerves for, I think, pretty much the whole game. And I can tell you with 100% accuracy and belief and truthfulness that the minute we would hit overtime, all of that went away. I was like, we got this.
I kind of felt that way for the game, too. Just physically, the 49ers looked beat up, just to be honest with it. They looked physically tired. And when they took the ball first, and we already commented on that earlier, I couldn't believe they took the ball first, man.
When we got the ball in overtime, I was like, 100% Patrick Mahomes is not going to lose this game. He's going down. He's winning this game. No question in my mind. It's happening.
What's crazy
is that not one of those moments? Is that not, we've talked about this before a little bit, but is that not like that Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant? This dude ain't losing today.
Oh, most definitely. What's crazy to me is Travis Kelce mentioned that they had been practicing scenarios where, like, even if the 49ers would have scored first, they were going for 2 if they scored a touchdown on the way back. they were going to win it right there. And I think Andy Reid had plays drawn up, just especially in this, like the game-winning play. I think that would have been their 2-point conversion in that scenario.
So, coaching, I think, made a huge difference in the game, man. And I was talking to my Niners buddy earlier today, Jason, and we were talking a little bit about situational football and how that plays into practice and how you fit it in, and how if you do it properly, there's never going to be a situation where your guys don't know what's going on. And I had briefly brought up that there was some headlines going out that the 49ers didn't understand overtime rules. How is that okay?
There was a few people that didn't understand it. My man Marlon, who's online, he didn't understand it. He thought the first team that scored a touchdown the game was won. And I was explaining it to him as we were talking during the game. I heard Dan Orlovsky's.
That's one thing as a fan, but this is your profession. I'm gonna stick up for Marlon a little bit. Like, hey, like, he's a fan, dude. He just watches football. He's not obsessed with it like me or you. But he's big into it. But this is your profession, brother, and you're in the biggest stage ever. On the national stage, everybody's looking at you. You're playing for the only trophy that matters, and you don't know the rules to overtime, man?
What I would have loved to see is if the 49ers would have scored a touchdown on that opening possession and them rush the field. That's what I honestly would have loved to see.
Yeah, I don't think
they understood the rules.
Was it McAfee? McAfee was talking about that earlier.
Did he mention it?
He did. That would have been hilarious to me.
It would have been
demoralizing to them. Let's see. When 49ers kicked a field goal in overtime, I told the group game over. Chiefs were going to go down and score the touchdown for sure. Yeah. Like, it was just once they kicked that field goal, I was like, oh, you fucked up. Excuse my language.
And it's like I said, they should have gone for it, because at least going for it changes the Chiefs. Even if you don't make it, it changes the Chiefs from having 4 downs to where the Chiefs have to think about punting the ball.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest key to it. That's why they should have just went for it on 4th down.
I agree, but then I don't know. That also changes for your defense, because if you get down anywhere near Butker's range, I mean, you get to the 20-yard line, do you just kick it and go home?
Maybe, but I mean, it's just one of those things. That's why I don't think you should have took the ball first, no matter what. Because even if you're saying you want to dictate the game, when you get the ball second, you can go for 2, and you're still dictating the game how you want to dictate it.
Totally agree with that, man. Totally agree with that. There was one more thing I wanted to talk about, but I can't even think about it right now. I'm losing my train of thought. Just so much stuff to discuss with that game, honestly, man. It was such a crazy, good-ass game. One of the better Super Bowls I've ever watched. Where do you rate it on Super Bowls?
Just off the top of my head, I'm going to put it number 4 at least. Okay.
What 3 are ahead of them? Not the Cowboys wins,
93, 94, 96.
Oh, Lord, man. Lord.
I don't know what else you want me to say about it.
I mean, that's so predictable, man. Oh, my goodness. Marlon,
come on.
Thoughts on the halftime show. So I will give my very, very brief thoughts that are going to disappoint people. I am such a football junkie. I have no interest in the halftime show. I switched over to the NFL Network, and I watched a real halftime show. So I don't even know what happened. I heard it was awesome.
Okay.
I like all the people that performed. It wasn't like a snub of anybody that performed or anything like that. I was just too locked into the game and wanted to hear football stuff. So switched over to the NFL Network.
My quick synopsis on it is, first time I heard it, I thought it was an average halftime show. I thought it was good. I went back and rewatched the halftime show, and I love the fact of everyone that he brought out. He represented Atlanta, actually, brought out a lot of Atlanta artists, because that's where Usher's from and that's where he represents performing. So overall, I gave it a top 5 performance rating. For me, the number 1 performance rating that I ever saw was probably Bruno Mars. He changed the whole game with halftime shows. After that, I gave it to Michael Jackson because he actually performed when first time I got to watch the Dallas Cowboys in a Super Bowl, he was the halftime performer. So that's why I give Michael 2. Prince was 3. And then for me, Bruno Mars could either be 4 or 5 in that range. Or, Usher could be 4 or 5, just depending on who else you want to put there. It could be Beyonce, could be the West Coast connection that they did last year in the Super Bowl. But that's about where I put
I liked
Usher
last
performance
year's.
at.
I did watch last year's. Like, I liked it. I'm not a big live performance person. I love music. I do.
Mm-hmm.
But I prefer recorded music. I don't know why. Sounds better.
See, that's crazy because I love live music. I love it. I love listening to stuff live. I love hearing the inflections in the voice and everything to that
Yeah.
effect with it. I love it live.
Yeah. It might be my crowd thing. You know, like a lot of times
Yeah.
if you have to hear live music, you got to be in the crowd. And I don't love crowds. So I've not been to a ton of concerts. Most of the concerts I've been to were on deployment when people came over for like USO shows and stuff like that. So I've been to a few concerts. Buck Cherry actually did a concert for us deployed one time, which I'm not like a huge Buck Cherry fan, but they did a great performance, man. Like they played their heart out, played all their cool hits and stuff, which was nice. So that was really cool. But yeah, I'm not a big live music guy all the time. I'll go to the bar downtown and listen to some live music at the Dubliner every now and then, but not my thing.
Gotcha.
But yeah. So I heard it was great. I'll probably watch it today. Just to see what everybody was talking about. Because all I heard all day long was the halftime show was amazing.
Yeah, it was good.
What was your favorite part?
Amazing. Just him bringing out everyone representing. I like the roller skate part. I can't roller skate myself, but I did like the roller skate part that he does.
Okay. Yeah. I heard that he was kind of bragging about his roller skating skills. Were they really that on par?
Oh yeah, he's good. He posts his roller skating skills online all the time while he's performing different songs and dancing and stuff. He's
real,
good
man?
on roller skates. Yeah, for real.
I'm learning about you right now. I'm learning something I didn't know about you, man. Like you're out here following Usher on Instagram and stuff, and you know about his skating skills.
Hey man, it pops up, it shows. I listen to music, so it's one of those things that pops up for me. And he'll showcase his dancing skills while he's roller skating around the ring and stuff like that, focused on the camera while he's doing it. I mean, it's actually pretty cool to look at, man. I'm not gonna lie, it's awesome to look at.
My algorithm's way different than your algorithm. I'll just be honest with you. Like my Instagram algorithm, we're not going to talk about that. What shows up on mine, and then like my Twitter algorithm is completely football. Like it's all just plays and
that's my algorithm on Twitter as well. Yeah.
My YouTube algorithm's a little weird. Like I get a lot of conspiracy theory stuff and just strange people talking about strange stuff. I like a lot of long form podcasts, so like people talking for hours and hours about intellectual stuff. I don't know why I like that, but I do. But, yeah, I don't watch any pop culture stuff. I'm not a big pop culture guy.
No, man, I am into just about anything and everything. So that's why I know a little bit about. Could be part of my job because I'm, of course, a restaurant manager, so I can just be able to talk to people about different things anytime. So I just always dabble in a little bit of something. Yeah.
So with that, I got something I want to say. It's a question. All right.
All right.
So when the Kansas City Chiefs walk into a bar, do they sit at the bar? Do they sit at the booth? Or do we sit at the head of the table?
Hey, you don't take Roman Reigns' spot. That's all I'll say. You ain't taking Roman Reigns' spot.
We sitting at the head of the table, baby. We sitting at the head of the table. So what's up? Let's talk a little wrestling.
They're kind of in they just did I don't know if you saw their press conference that they did on Thursday, right before the Super Bowl. Was on Peacock. It was actually a really good press conference for WrestleMania. The Rock showed up, slapped Cody Rhodes in the face. They're teasing, this is from what I'm hearing, they're teasing a Rock and Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, night 1 of WrestleMania tag team match, is what they're teasing. Don't know if that's going to happen, but that's what they're teasing. And then night 2 is going to be Cody versus Seth or Cody versus Roman Reigns, and then Seth versus whoever wins the Elimination Chamber, which will probably be Drew McIntyre. So not sure how that's going to turn out yet, but that's what they're kind of teasing for WWE right now.
I
So
did
we'll see
not
what
see
happens.
that press conference. I did, however, watch The Rock when he showed up on McAfee.
Okay.
And that was electric, as
Yep.
McAfee says. So, yeah, man, I had a good time with that. I always loved The Rock. Great guy. What can you say about it? Such a talented guy that, like, does anything and everything he wants. And he's one of those people, like, you want to be mad at because he's just good at everything. But, yeah, it was exciting, man, to hear him maybe entering the ring again. It's a good time for me to get back into wrestling because that's kind of the link back to my generation of wrestling that I liked. So it's got me a little bit excited about it, man. So I don't really fully understand all the implications or these newer characters that you're talking about, but I am excited to see The Rock.
Oh, it's good. It feels like WWE is starting to peak up a little bit again. They had a few down years. But seems like they're about to peak back up, and we'll see where it goes from here. With The Rock being fully invested, the company that actually owns WWE is actually the same company that owns UFC. I didn't know if you knew that or not. So they're all
I did
kind
not.
of tied
So
together. Yeah.
Vince McMahon doesn't truly own the WWE anymore?
No, and he just actually stepped down because he had some off-camera type allegations and things that he's dealing with right now.
I had heard a little bit about it. I don't want to laugh at it because I don't really know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So excuse me if I'm laughing at something terrible, I apologize. But yeah, I had heard that he had some legal issues or whatever.
Yep. He's had some legal issues. Brock Lesnar's kind of gotten involved into it a little bit. Unfortunately, WWE's kind of scratching Brock Lesnar from all their visual stuff as well. Because he's kind of tied in. Yeah, he's allegedly tied into the thing and to what's going on. I don't know how much he had to do with it, and I've just heard speculation on it. But from what I hear, they've already replaced him. Brock Lesnar used to be in the intro for WWE on Raw, and they kind of took him out of that picture now.
So okay, I know we had kind of said that we don't want to get into this off the field stuff, and I'll stand by that. But you got to give me a little something here. Are we talking allegedly some stuff that's like similar to Brett Favre? Is that what we're talking about?
A little bit worse, a lot worse than that for what's been put into it's in public records for what Vince was doing, basically taking advantage of an intern, I believe, is kind of what's been alleged with it. The intern said Vince made her do some things, and she was promised to Brock Lesnar for Brock Lesnar coming back to WWE type deal.
Oh my God. That's trash. Okay, yeah. Well,
so that's all the alleged stuff.
Yeah, if that's true, that's terrible. So we'll move on.
So Vince stepped down, and I haven't read the full documents. I've seen brief synopses of them, and it's bad stuff.
So with that, we're coming up on March Madness. Do you have a favorite? Do you have somebody that you think is going to run the table? And are you going to be attending any of the games here in Omaha?
Possibly attending some things in Omaha, but we have some things where our coach is kind of get us down to K-State, remember? So that's the same weekend? Omaha. Yep, that's the same weekend. So
of course it is.
Yeah. That's the same weekend.
Yeah. Well, I'm a K-State fan, and I really enjoy those coaching clinics. They're fantastic. So, I already said I'm going. So it really didn't matter what was going to be going on in Omaha that weekend. I was going to that.
Correct. So, that's the same weekend. I'll be honest, on the men's side, I haven't followed it that much. I know a few players that are playing some college ball. Local kid Chucky Hepburn, he's at Wisconsin. Hunter Silas, he's at Wake Forest. He went to Millard North. Those are that's about the extent of what I know for a men's college basketball as far as the players go. I've actually been more into the women's college basketball this year with Caitlin Clark, LSU, South Carolina, all them teams playing. Girls are actually talking trash on the court, man. Like, you can say the gameplay is not men's, it's not. But I think having two young girls that have played and gone through basketball, and I've seen the development of the women's game, I'm actually more into the women's game this year than I am the men's game.
That says a lot, man. That's good for them. Like,
yeah,
I've certainly made my jokes about women's basketball. I'm not gonna lie, but Caitlin Clark is electric, and Bayou Barbie. Oh my goodness.
yeah. I mean,
that's a beautiful woman, and she's a hell of a player.
Yes, she is
a hell of a player, dude. And she talks trash, like you said. I love it. I'm there for it.
Caitlin Clark talks trash. Like, I mean, the whole women's game has evolved, at least on the trash talking and getting into each other's face a little bit. And it's nothing horribly mean-spirited. They just talk trash to each other. And the men's game is, I don't know any men players. Like, to me, the dominant players are gone. And I couldn't tell you 5 men basketball players playing basketball this year. And I'm into basketball. And I couldn't tell you 5 players on the men's side.
Yeah, unfortunately, man, like I honestly probably couldn't name a single guy, to be completely honest with you. I want to get more into it. I miss college basketball being important to me. I miss like those days of back in the day when, you know, KU would be a loaded team and you're going to the tournament and you're excited to see all the craziness happen in the tournament. It just doesn't have the same feeling anymore. Am I wrong?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because of the one and done. So the top players are leaving. You don't even get to really know the top players. With the NIL, these players are switching schools all the time too. So it's just, they'll have to figure something out.
The NCAA, they did so much damage when they just refused to acquiesce and pay some people and set up a structured way to make this all work. And then they took it to court because they were greedy. And they got struck down in court. And then the next day, guess what? When it got struck down in court, there's no more rules.
Nope.
So this is 100% on the NCAA.
So here's something that I'm hearing is going to possibly come out of this whole situation as well. And it's going to be further down the road. But I've heard that there's some lawyers trying to get together and sue the NCAA saying, why does a player only have 4 years of eligibility? That if they're going for their master's or anything to that effect with it, why can't they stay in school for 6-7 years, especially collecting NIL money? Yeah. And keep playing ball. And that's something that I hear is possibly coming down the road as far as a lawsuit against the NCAA.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this is what they've done to themselves, is they've opened themselves up to all sorts of ridiculous lawsuits, which I'm sorry, I kind of think that's ridiculous. However, at the same time, now you've opened yourself to that, because what is the purpose of that rule, you know? Like,
yeah. And what's even more ridiculous is these players are making more money. Like Caitlin Clark, when she goes to the WNBA, she'll get endorsements and stuff.
But
salary-wise, it's a pay cut. It's a pay cut for her, which is going to be crazy.
That's nuts, dude. I don't know. We may see this year in the draft some college football players take a pay cut.
Oh, they will be.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. Yeah. I mean, it's going to happen. The Dallas Cowboys at their facilities have something set up to where it's like a counseling session or a management session, because they said players are going to be getting drafted, taking a pay cut from what they were making in college.
I just want to be clear that I am absolutely pro player, and I want players to get taken care of. I think it's the right thing to do. But I also think this has just devolved into complete and utter nonsense.
It has.
And it's the Wild West, and guys are out here getting paid millions of dollars now to play college football. I know in my mind, in the early days of this argument, when people started saying, well, why don't we pay college football players? Because football is really where this started. I was one of the main guys that was like, they deserve to get paid, man. They're out there destroying their bodies. They're making millions of dollars for the school, and they don't get a piece of it. All they get is a scholarship, but most of them don't finish the education anyway. Like, it didn't make any sense, but I can say that back then when I was making those arguments, I never imagined it turning into this either.
And what's crazy is now you're seeing college coaches trying to leave college because they don't want to deal with this anymore. I mean, how does
Yeah.
Chip Kelly go from being he decides to step down as a head coach to take an offensive coordinator job at Ohio State?
I think that was a
It's not,
smart move, though. I think that was
I think it
smart
was
move.
too, but it's not like he was at a small college and going
Yeah.
to Ohio State.
Well,
He's
let's
at
talk about this
UCLA as
for
head coach.
let's talk about this for a minute because it kind of affects you and I a little bit. So recruiting has changed, and I don't know if college football fans know this, but when we go out to all our coaching conferences and all this stuff, and we're talking to, I mean, you and I have this awesome benefit of this great job that we have, where we get to be in the same room with major Division I coaches and get to talk to them and hear their thoughts and even ask them questions and stuff. And everyone I've heard has said they're not excited about recruiting high school kids anymore because of all
No,
this NIL stuff and the transfer portal. And I would rather go get a 19 to 20-year-old kid that's played some college football. I know he can stay in the program. I know what's right with him. I know what's wrong with him, and I can fix it.
yep.
Rather than getting a 17-year-old that you don't even know if he's going to be able to adjust to football being a job.
And then it's hitting a trickle down effect to where you got the FCS schools. They're taking the kids that don't get Division I scholarships, which is pushing down to where the Division II schools are waiting for the FCS kids that trickle down to that effect. So these high school kids aren't getting recruited the way they should
Not the way they
anymore.
used to.
Most colleges, most colleges are signing 4 or 5 high school kids. I mean, you got some that are going above and beyond that, but for the most part, that's 4 or 5, and they're bringing in transfers, coming and taking those scholarships, and it's a horrible situation with the way it's
Yeah.
unfolding.
Yeah, and like the one thing to talk about real quick is, back in the day, you would take in 25 high school kids a year.
Yep.
At every major college. So you're talking about, what is it, 120 colleges? Something like that? Am I off? Is that's
somewhere
now
around there?
So now you're down to 5 to 10 per school, depending on the coach, right?
Right.
So that's a huge number of kids that used to be going to these major schools that are now going down to FCS or Division II or whatever, man. So Division III.
And I mean, I just put it like this: let's just say you were a college head coach, and you've been average 500 team on average, and you feel like your job is starting to get on the line. Where are you going to start recruiting from? You're not going to rely on a high school kid unless they're an absolute stud.
No, I'm going to get some JUCOs. I'm going out to the best JUCOs, and I'm going to Iowa Western. I'm going to the Kansas JUCOs, and I'm getting the best kids.
Yep, and then you're trying to bring in the NIL kids as well. Like, that's what you're going to be doing.
Yeah. Yep. So it's interesting, and how that affects us, just so everybody knows, is it trickles down to the high schools because we're trying to get our guys into school and get them some free education because ultimately that makes our guys better men. So it's hard to get those kids into schools where, just a few years ago they might have had several opportunities, and now some of those schools are not as interested. They're kind of saying, well, maybe he should go play in a JUCO, and we'll keep looking at him there.
Correct. I mean, that's more of how they're attacking the situation now.
Yeah.
And it sucks for the high school kids for the most part. It really does. High school kids, I heard a thing where at the Senior Bowl, high school kids were fighting over how many stars they get because they know that's going to affect their NIL deal coming out of high school, how they're rated as a star player.
So stupid. And I'll, without sharing any details, I will say that we have had at least one person request a recruitment letter from junior high.
Wow.
Yeah. Like they asked for Coach T to write a letter.
Wow.
So I won't share any more details on that.
You're good.
But like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And then we got a guy that is graduating this year that I believe is absolutely a Division I talent and just not getting any of the attention that he deserves, in my opinion. So he's probably going to go play at a JUCO.
No, most definitely.
And I believe firmly that he'll play his way into a Division I school because he's just that kind of guy. But it's a little bit sucks for the kids, man. It's a little bit of a growing pain. Well, it'll all work itself out, but we're at a strange time in football, man.
Nope, it definitely is. Even for basketball, it still is. Most sports, it is. Heck, Nebraska volleyball had some girls transfer, and it's almost turned into the wild, wild west as far as that goes, as far as college transfers go.
Yeah.
That type of thing. And I don't blame kids for wanting to transfer to better themselves and get into better situations. But it just feels just too wide open at the moment, especially when you consider the NIL money that's flying around with it. It's just.
And I hope we kind of let the market deal with it a little bit, just my personal opinion, because if we go in and fly in with a bunch of rules ex post facto here and just start throwing rules at things, I think we could break it even further. So I think we need to let the dust settle for a minute before we start making any drastic changes, kind of see what how it's all going to work and how it's all going to find its own ecosystem before we go too crazy with it, man. But it is definitely strange. And we never really talk about the kids that hit the transfer portal and then don't end up back at a Division I school.
Correct. And I think that needs to also be mentioned a little bit more, probably. I don't know if it ever will, but it seems like that needs to be touched on a little bit more as well, because there's a bunch of kids that go unsigned and don't get their scholarships back or anything. So
I think we could probably make some sort of rule right now about tampering, because from what I've heard, like, there's nothing keeping another college from calling your dude and being like, hey, man, what are you getting paid there? How about you come over here?
Yeah, haven't dove that deep into the rules, but I'm sure there's probably not.
Mm-hmm.
So
I've heard of
some recruiting violations. Colorado had a few recruiting violations that I heard of.
Oh, for real? What was Prime doing over there?
But they're minor violations, Twitter post or something like that.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, they're minor violations. There was a couple other schools. I think Florida State had a couple.
Dude, well. Prime killed the transfer portal, dude. He destroyed it.
But I don't blame them. People have gotten on Prime for that. But when you have a son that's already close to a senior year, you got Hunter over there that's close to being developed, you got to bring in players right now.
Yep.
You have to get to that point where you need to get to. You got to.
For sure, man. For sure. Absolutely, dude. So, well, we've been streaming for 2 hours. I think we covered a whole bunch of really cool stuff. I had a good time with it, man. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely.
Got anything else you want to talk about?
No, most definitely. I think we did. Like I said, the one thing I'm looking forward to is next year's Super Bowl. And we'll see who's the most hated team between the Chiefs and the Cowboys. Will America not want the Chiefs to three-peat, or will they just not want the Cowboys to win it all? We'll find out next year. That's my prediction right there.
Bro, I'm actually hoping for that. I am hoping for that.
We will find out who is the most hated team.
Don't get me wrong. I'm pretty pissed off that they picked the 49ers as the Super Bowl favorites for next year. It's so utterly and completely disrespectful. However, I would forego that to see the Cowboys. I want to see them. Yeah. All right, bro. It's been an awesome time. Thank you, everybody, for supporting us. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks for watching us. We appreciate you. And you want to end it with our closing words that you always give?
Yeah. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds. Help each other out. Tell each other something nice. Have a good one, guys.
Man. All right.